Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile 1 discussion. Welcome to day 6 of Teaser season for patch 3.27 and the upcoming Keepers of the Flame expansion. Today will be a fairly short video because we've got only one little teaser today and there's not a lot hidden in this one. There are things that are hidden in it, but not anything massive. So let's start with the overt teaser. Opening huge amounts of hard-earned stack decks can feel pretty daunting, aka it can absolutely destroy your fingers. In 3.27, you've got two options to do it faster. You can either control right-click, and then that'll open them automatically into your inventory. Or you can shift and hold right-click, and then instead they will drop onto the ground, assuming you're in a valid location to do that, such as in the Delve Mines, which is where people tend to do it. Now, Grinding Games here have recorded a video that doesn't take advantage of the main reason you would want to do this. And that's because this video was recorded without the use of a loot filter. If you did this with a loot filter, especially one that's set fairly strict, that culls out divination cards that have no real interest to endgame players, and that also culls out divination cards that, do provide something that's useful, but the value of what you're turning it in for isn't worth all the clicks involved, then you'll find that you'll get a much better result here. You'll be able to fill your inventory with 1200 stacked decks, disgorge them onto the ground, pick up maybe 70 of the cards, or potentially with a stricter filter, you might only pick up 12, and then go and turn them in. It is very much the case with stack decks that the vast majority of wealth that comes out of them comes from less than 1% of the stack decks. This is definitely a jackpot hunting exercise, but it's one that's quite lucrative. Or at least it has been in the past. I think that with these quality of life changes, you might find that there are more people who get into stack deck opening, and competition between them will then end up squeezing out the profits that were found by opening stack decks in the past. If you do want to farm a whole bunch of stack decks yourself, probably the best way to do that at the moment is through the use of Divination Scarab of the Cloister. If you apply 5 of this Scarab to a map, not only do you get 5 lots of the 8 to 12 packs of monsters, so that's an average of 50 packs of Doedre's Devoted, but each of the monsters that you slay has not a 1% chance to drop a stack deck, but a 5% chance. That's because of the way that this has been worded. And so the way that people tend to do this is they'll put 50 packs on using 5 copies of Divination Scarab of the Cloister, and they'll do this on maps that have fairly high inherent pack size. You get the pack size up reasonably high through the use of an 8 mod map, and also through the use of map modifier increasing effects on the passive tree. This is one of those things that tends to be pretty good if and only if you can penetrate the nasty proximity shields that those Doedre's Devoted monsters always have. So certain builds are good at this, certain builds are absolutely terrible at this strategy, but if you're playing one that's good, then this is a reasonably solid way to farm yourself lots and lots of stack decks and play around with this new mechanic. Now, I have had a look at all 60 divination cards that are shown in this. There are absolutely no new divination cards that are shown. This could mean one of 3 things. It could mean that they recorded this video without new divination cards fully implemented. It could mean there are no new divination cards coming in 3.27, or it could mean that there are new divination cards coming, but they're just rare enough that it's not unreasonable to open 60 cards and rip none of them. The other thing that might jump out at you from this is that you'll notice only 1 copy of the very common divination card, Reign of Chaos. This is the most common divination card in the game, and it is also the most common to rip out of stacked decks. However, while only 1 of them is less than you would expect from ripping 60 decks, normally you'd expect to get 2, maybe even 3, it is far from unheard of to get 1 or even to get 0 when you rip 60 decks. And so there's nothing that indicates any substantial rebalance of the way that stacked decks work. Now let's also talk about the hidden teaser in this, and that is that on this person's middle click mouse button, there is a new skill that is completely unfamiliar. We don't know what this is. We don't really have any information on what it might be. People have speculated a bunch of things. Maybe it's a Chayula themed skill, maybe it's a reskin of Vaal Breach, but ultimately we do not know. So that's all in the way of news from Grinding Games today. Very quiet day, but yesterday they dropped some massive news on us, and so there is yesterday's video. I'll put a link to that at the end of this one so that you can have a look at that. And I also put together a massive compilation of tips and tricks, things I wish I'd known earlier, so I'll put a link up to that as well. But there is one more thing that I wanted to plug from around the Path of Exile 1 community, and that is Cyclone's definitive guide to the campaign. This is not aimed at the new player. This is also not aimed at the person that's as bad at speedrunning the campaign as I am. This is aimed at people who are already good at speedrunning the campaign, but want to go from being good to being excellent. If you're in that category, I'll put a link to it down in the description below. There's a whole lot of information on all the different layouts that exist in the game and various ways to optimize your campaign playthrough, including 10 zones, 1 in each act, that Cyclone considers to be the highest impact ones for you to learn. For example, there's a whole lot of information on the upper prison, all the different layouts that can exist, and a couple of tips and tricks as to how to read which of these you're in, and strategies to optimize your playthrough and get into maps quicker. I do think that in 3.27, it is going to be more important than ever before for those of you that play in Trade League to be at the cutting edge of progression. Asynchronous trade is going to be a force multiplier. If you are able to create items before anyone else is, it's going to be a force multiplier because you're not going to need to spend time selling them, and as a result, it is going to be even more impactful to be in maps earlier. So, link to Cyclone's guide down in the description below. Definitely worth checking that out, especially if you're someone that is already pretty good at the campaign and you want to go from being good to being excellent. Barring Grinding Gear Games deciding to throw a spanner in the works and put out a second teaser today, I'm going to leave it there, so may your Varlorbs have interesting results.